Good evening. Thank you for joining our presentation this morning. This is Christian Wilwall. I am the Dean of Global Education, and this evening, Grace Cleary, the Assistant Dean of Global Education, and some of our study abroad students are going to speak to you about study abroad and the wonderful opportunity that it is for Providence College students. Just to say a few things about myself before we kick off this presentation. I'm new to Providence College. I joined PC back in July, and I'm very excited to be here despite the challenging circumstances that we have, and I wish we would be doing this in person, but it's nice that we have the technology to have this presentation and give students and parents wonderful information about study abroad here at PC. So once upon a time, I was a study abroad student. I studied French and international studies as an undergraduate, and that took me to Geneva, Switzerland on a program sponsored by the School for International Training, SIT. You'll hear a little bit more about SIT and what they do for our students and the wonderful programs they offer a little bit later in the presentation. But study abroad also creates opportunities for students. I got to improve my language skills while I was in Switzerland. I lived with a host family, spoke French every day that I was there, improved my French language skills, and I got to go abroad again after I graduated from college. I taught English in France for a year, and then I went and did my master's degree at the University of London. From there, I went on to Japan for about 5 years to teach English. Came back to the United States and transitioned into working in international education and in working colleges and universities here in the United States. And a few years ago, I completed my doctorate in international education. So I kind of live, breathe, and live study abroad on a daily basis. So very passionate and excited about these opportunities and helping students, have these wonderful, amazing experiences abroad. So I'm going to turn things over to Grace for a moment so she can introduce herself, and then we'll get moving along with the presentation. Thank you for being here.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Cleary and I'm the Assistant Dean of Global Education at Providence College. This is my 5th year at PC, and I support students in a number of ways. I'm a designated study abroad advisor for all PCSB students. And in addition, I support the work of the Dean with on-campus internationalization efforts and career integration, where we try to enable students who study abroad to enhance their career prospects and through different workshops and other events and training.
So we have a very strong study abroad culture and tradition here at PC, and we're very proud of the progress that we've had with study abroad participation. And we've received national recognition for this from the Institute of International Education, which does a report on an annual basis. So most recently, we were ranked 6th for the institutions in our category. So we're very proud of this accomplishment. And right now, I would say about 45% of juniors studied abroad during the previous academic year. So that's pretty remarkable. We're very proud of that, to be able to provide students these wonderful opportunities to enhance their education and to learn about other cultures through a study abroad experience.
So part of the reason that we have such high participation in study abroad at Providence College has to do with really 2 factors. One is affordability and the other is curricular fit. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how we try to make study abroad accessible, affordable, something that you can budget for, and then also the ways in which we make sure that students stay on track for graduation, earn credits towards their degree, and take courses that are going to be an important part of their career looking forward and really help to enhance their understanding of their major.
Great, and PC offers a variety of study abroad programs all over the world. Students can study abroad for a semester or even an academic year. There are also summer programs available for students. In addition, PC faculty develop short-term programs in a variety of academic disciplines. These programs take place during winter break, spring break, Easter break, and Maymester. Many programs have a service learning or internship option, and Grace is now going to talk about internships.
All right, so we mentioned before that I work really closely with students from the Providence College School of Business who are studying abroad for a semester. One thing that makes the PCSB unique is that they actually integrate a business internship into the semester abroad experience. So students from the School of Business who go abroad for a semester will do a part-time internship at their host city. So they'll be taking classes, usually 3 or 4 classes, and then an internship that's in the range of 8 to 15 hours a week, and some students opt to do a 6-credit internship that requires more hours on site. So the nice thing about this is, we really think it's an important differentiator for PCSB students. When we have recruiters come on campus, seeing that half of the business students are studying abroad and that they all have global, experience on their resume, I think is really important. The other nice thing is that we don't require students to have their own placements. We understand that student may want to study abroad in Milan and may not know anyone in Italy, and that's completely fine. We actually source those placements. We work with the students to find something that's going to be a good fit for them academically and in terms of their career interests. The other thing is that most of these internship sites don't require a second language, so the internships themselves will actually be in English. So we're hoping that this will be a way to encourage students to study abroad in places like China, where maybe they don't necessarily have the language experience at this point. So Spencer was one of our students who was abroad last fall. He is a finance major and he studied abroad in Australia. So I'm going to actually have him, I'm going to turn it over to him for a few minutes to tell you a little bit more about his experience in Sydney.
Hello, everybody. My name is Spencer FOLEY. As Grace said before, I'm a senior at Providence College, and I studied in Sydney last semester. 2 semesters ago, last fall. And I studied with CAPA, the Global Education Network, which is a fantastic program that the school offers. And I could talk for ages about the adventures I had studying abroad, about the beaches, the adventures such as skydiving, as you can see in one of the pictures. And I lived on a boat for 3 days on the Great Barrier Reef and scuba dived 3 times a day. I had a lot of great adventures, and I went to places such as Indonesia, New Zealand, all over Australia. But I'm going to go into the internship that I had while I was in Sydney. So as I said before, I'm a finance major. I was looking for a wealth management internship while I was there, during the process, you pretty much put down 3 different segments of this that you would want to work in. And the school helps you place into the internship, which is very helpful. I don't know anyone from Sydney. I don't know any companies from Sydney. I'm a senior. I'm already having a tough enough time finding jobs around me. I had no idea how I was going to find one in Sydney. So, so the process was actually very smooth for me. They placed me in a 20-hour-a-week internship, which was a 3-credit internship. And so when I was thinking about that, I was like, I want to go to I'm going abroad to travel. Really, I want to see the country and stuff. I was really worried that a 20-hour-a-week internship was going to take away from that, but I had no trouble at all. I traveled half the weekends I was there. As I said, I went all over Australia. I went to Indonesia. I went to New Zealand. These are on weekends, and I had plenty of time to see all the great places I wanted to. So the process, I sent my resume through Horizon. I was placed with a company called Kimosabi Capital, which was a fantastic company in Sydney. It's a wealth management firm, and I was a wealth management intern there. The culture at this company was fantastic. I mean, the first day I got there, my boss took me out for coffee, and I had a chat with him for about 2 hours. Fantastic guy. And like the whole process, I mean, the work that he gave me wasn't unbearable. The 20 hours a week around my 4 other classes wasn't bad at all as well. And like the everyday work he gave me was very interesting as well. They just acquired a company called Aguia, which is a mining company in Brazil. And I did a lot of work looking through companies' 10Ks, such as competitors in the market, and comparing it to Aguia, since it was a public company at the time. And so there was a lot of everyday work like that, but mostly the big things that stood out to me were the capital raises, the biannual checkups with clients, I went to an annual general meeting with for a company called the Whiskey Projects, which they make Zodiacs for the military. And also through this, I went to a military convention in downtown Sydney, which was fantastic. I actually met the Minister of Defense there. I got to see this massive showcasing of all these massive military innovations, which was really cool to see. Especially since I've been working for this company for so long and doing a lot of desk work. It was great to go out and see like a lot of the great things that they were doing. And as I said before, the work culture in the country was fantastic. The CEO of the company sat across from me every day of the week. Every day he would bring me coffee in the morning. He wouldn't ask for me for the, I think in the US it's the little like opposite. Usually you bring your boss coffee in the morning, but he was bringing me coffee in the morning. Lunches, he brought me to dinner the last day I was there, spent like $200 on me. Very, very nice guy. And all this is due to a culture that I learned in Australia called mateship, which is pretty much like this socialist aspect that everyone is the same as you. Everyone is your mate. You've heard like Australians say a lot before, oh, he's my mate. But that's pretty much actually what they truly believe. Everyone around you is equal and the same. And that's how I was treated when I was there. And it was fantastic to see that work culture and compare it to something like in the US as well. And this entire internship process was fantastic. I made it through. It was a great time, and the impact that it had on my career was unbelievable. And I actually really first noticed that last week when I had a interview with a company called McAdams Financial. And in the interview, my second question actually was about the internship I had at Kemosabe Capital. And as I explained the whole process, what I did there on a daily basis, the big things I did, such as the capital raises and the annual general meetings, and all the great things that I learned through the company, he said it was one of the best things he's heard in an interview. And I ended up actually getting a second round interview for that job, which I have on Thursday. So obviously that this job is great for your resume, to talk in an interview, for the job search, everything like that. But it was also a great experience to see like the work culture there compared to the US. And I can vouch from a lot of my friends who had internships in other countries as well, that it was very, very similar to mine, and everyone had a great time. And I hope you look forward to doing it.
Thank you so much, Spencer, and good luck on your interview on Thursday. That's awesome. So, just one thing that I failed to mention when I mentioned the the internships earlier is that this is a PCSB integrated program that we're doing, but there's actually options for students of all different majors to participate in the internships that we offer globally. So elementary education majors are one. Students really of any major could participate in this if that's something they were interested in. So I'm going to highlight a couple of flagship programs that we have, including PC in Rome, Civ in London, and elementary education in Florence and Belfast. So PC in Rome is one of our oldest flagship programs. It's just outside of Vatican City, if anyone's familiar with the Prati neighborhood, and we send about 80 to 100 students a year on this program. So it's actually a pretty popular program, especially for students in the School of Business, but really students of any major could benefit from this program. So some of the things that make it sort of unique are we have an Italian roommate program as part of the PC Rome semester. So students will actually be living in a flat with 4 or 5 other PC students, and then a local Italian university student who can help them to get acclimated. And that's been a really great way for students to kind of get outside of the Providence College bubble a little bit on the program, meet the Italian roommate and their friends, and sort of engage, with local students. The program also offers a variety of different weekend excursions that are included in the program price. And because the students are going on these excursions with Italians who really know their way around, I think that they find that it helps them kind of get out of the tourist areas a little bit and see something a little bit more authentic. Students on this program also take a theology course as part of the core curriculum, and they take a course called New Testament in the Eternal City. And this is a really amazing way to get your theology credit, because every single class, with the exception of the final exam, meets on site. So they meet their professor, at the Sistine Chapel one morning. He'll get them in at 7 o'clock. He's actually a Vatican guide. So he's able to get the students in for their own private tour of the Sistine Chapel in the early morning, which is pretty amazing. SIV in London is another flagship program that we offer. And this program is specifically for sophomores. So most of the semester study abroad opportunities that we have are for juniors. Occasionally we get some seniors participating, and there's this one program that we have for second semester sophomores. It's called SIV in London, and most of the semester is spent in London, with the exception of a 7-day excursion to Athens, Greece. So this is a really great way for students to get their DWC 202 colloquium. They go abroad with 2 Providence College faculty members. Next year, it's going to be Stephanie Berninger from English and Margaret Manchester from History. So they're going to be offering a class called Battlefields and Home Fronts, and it's going to focus on England's role in 4 different European wars. So as you can imagine, they're going to be seeing a lot of different battlefield sites throughout England. They're also going to Normandy, France for a weekend, and then they're going to wrap it up with the 7-day excursion to Greece. This is a really interesting option for those who want to go abroad sophomore year, and it's actually the deadline for that will be coming up in March. So students apply March of freshman year to participate in this program.
Thanks. So one thing that I have to say that really I was excited about when I applied for the position, as I mentioned when I introduced myself, that I began in July. So when I saw that PC offered study abroad opportunities for education students, I was really excited about that, since I have an interest in teacher education. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on internationalizing teacher education. So I was really happy to see that PC had flagship programs for education students to study abroad, and that these programs would meet requirements for licensure and graduation through classroom experiences abroad. So as Grace mentioned, these students would get practical experience in the classroom as part of the study abroad experience, which I think is valuable, as it also sort of immerses students more into the culture than they would be otherwise. So as I said, this would be a great way for future teachers to learn about other cultures, so that they can bring the world into their future classrooms. These are fall semester programs, so it's only offered in the fall semester. Interested students work closely with both the education faculty and the CGE staff, myself, Grace, and our other advisor, Denise Miller, to plan for these experiences. It's really rare for education majors to be offered this type of opportunity, so this is something that really makes PC and being a pre-service teacher exciting here. It won't delay graduation, so we encourage students in teacher education to consider this as part of their PC education and professional development as future teachers. As I mentioned a little bit before the presentation, CGE also works closely, CGE is the Center for Global Education, also works closely with faculty and other departments on campus to provide additional faculty-led study abroad opportunities. So this is essentially a discrete program in which PC faculty will go abroad with students for a short period of time generally. These are unique credit-bearing, field-based experiential experiences in that the learning generally takes place outside of the traditional classroom on these programs. Examples would include tropical ecology in Belize during Easter break, PCSB programs in Milan or Australia, pictured here in winter break, or a program focusing on Japanese history in Japan during Maymester. Another recent program took place in Spain with a focus on history, in which students walked part of the renowned Camino de Santiago as part of the course. And they got to interview and spend time with others making the pilgrimage as part of the course. So again, these are really unique opportunities for students and faculty that students may not have otherwise. So these are really good opportunities for students who may not be able to spend an entire semester abroad, or for some students who may not be sure if study abroad is necessarily right for them. Oftentimes students will do a short-term experience first and realize, okay, I can actually do this, and then spend a semester abroad a little bit later on during their time here at PC. Academically speaking, study abroad aligns with the objectives of a liberal arts education, in that the experience really does foster the development of critical thinking, openness to other cultures and perspectives, and creative problem solving. Study abroad is a great way to get global perspective on your major and form relationships with faculty in different countries. When it comes to technicalities in academics, of course, students in any major can study abroad. Study abroad courses can count towards major, minor, or core requirements. Most courses are already pre-approved before students go abroad, because we do have an extensive database for study abroad courses to which students have access. So we try to make the process as easy as possible. Of course, careful planning is key, so it's always good for students in their first few semesters here at PC to start discussing their study abroad plans with us, myself, Grace, or Denise, the other advisor who works in our office, as well as their faculty and other advisors here on campus. So we are here to assist. All grades and credits will transfer back and be calculated into students' GPAs. So what happens in Paris doesn't stay in Paris.
All right, so I talked a little bit about how curricular fit and finances were really two key pieces for us in terms of study abroad accessibility. Homeschool tuition is one part of that. So our tuition model for study abroad is such that students will pay the tuition that they normally pay, with any scholarships, loans, or grants deducted. And then in addition, there's a $1,000 study abroad fee. So if a student is on a full scholarship, that student will continue to have a full scholarship while they're abroad. If a student normally gets a $5,000 tuition scholarship, that will also apply when they go abroad. The differences, in addition to the study abroad fee that students kind of need to budget for, are flights and visas. And not every country has a visa fee, but that would just be something to look into prior to departure. Students will pay their program for non-tuition fees like housing and international insurance, or any excursions they might go on. So that can kind of be, that can work in students' favor in some cases. I know, for instance, that students going to Spain often find, for instance, that the housing is less expensive there than it is at Providence College. And that can be a nice way of saving some money to kind of offset the cost of the flight or the visa. So financial aid applies, PC institutional aid applies. There are a couple of exceptions to this. So students who are on athletic scholarships actually need to be on campus playing their sport in order to collect the athletic scholarship. So unfortunately, that does not apply for study abroad. We do have a number of short-term faculty-led programs, though, that might be suitable for athletes. And then federal work-study funds are not available during semester abroad, since visa restrictions would prohibit students from earning money while they were away. There are a number of different scholarship opportunities that we have. So the Gilman Scholarship is available to Pell eligible students, and we have several students every semester who receive that scholarship. We have different Providence College scholarships, provider scholarships, and last year, in fact, students on semester study abroad during fall and spring earned $192,000 in scholarships. So we never want cost to be a barrier. If a student has any concerns, they should come to us, and we'll try to connect them with the proper scholarships. And I'm sorry if you can hear my 18-month-old, she's going to bed soon, so she's a little bit noisy right now. All right, so health and safety is a really common question that we get from parents especially. So, with everything going on this year, you may have heard, for instance, that we had to cancel fall study abroad and spring 2021 study abroad. We are, actively recruiting though for fall 21 and spring 2022. We're really excited about the prospect of being able to send students abroad again next fall. So there are a variety of different organizations that we'll consult with when we make decisions about whether or not to send a student, because even pre-pandemic, there were times when we had to look at different political situations or different other situations that came up, terrorism activity and things like that, and had to make decisions about whether to send students to different countries. So we've always looked at the Center for Disease Control, and we've also looked at the Department of State as guides to help us determine which countries we should be sending students to. The other key is the partners on the ground that we have. So these are called providers. Having partners on the ground who can tell us what the situation is like is really, really key, because sometimes, there may be a regional advisory, and then you find out that the city that the program is based in is actually really comfortable and life is kind of going on as usual. So that's always really important information for us to have. Providers are kind of like mini campuses. So they administer all different aspects of the study abroad experience, from academics, providing instruction, teaching, classroom space, finding housing, assisting with visas, assisting with health and safety. So if a student falls and breaks their ankle, taking them to the local hospital, doing interpretation if necessary, assisting with insurance paperwork. So really they provide a number of different forms of support for students while they're overseas. And I actually wanted to turn it over to DEBORAH LOPEZ, who's also a senior returning from study abroad, to tell us a little bit about her experience. She actually worked with 2 different providers because she was abroad for a full year. So I'll turn it over to you, DEBORAH.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, I'm DEBORAH LOPEZ, a senior, and I am a global studies and econ double major. And I'm here to kind of talk about the different ways in which my program provider helped me throughout my different semesters abroad. For the first semester, I actually studied abroad in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Lima, Peru, and Santiago, Chile, through the program provider of IES. And so a lot of the things that they did before I went abroad was that they reached out to me the summer before going abroad and making sure that I had the proper, if I had to get visas in check and the proper documents to kind of when I arrived to Chile and Argentina. And they were very helpful in regard of providing us with certain travel agents for us booking flights back home, because I know and there they were really pricey, so they kind of had their own partnership with certain travel agents to provide discounts and stuff. And also interesting enough too is when I was in Chile, there was a lot of political social movements, and and especially when we flew into the airport the day that we got into Chile, they provided with us with transportations and took us to homestays. And another key thing that our program provider helped us with was our housing placement. I kind of went a different route, which is with homestays. So my program provider kind of gave us a sheet and asked us what kind of living situation we would like to, and I opted in for a homestay. So they kind of paired us with families. And then as for my spring semester, I went abroad to Brazil, Spain, and South Africa, but it got cut short. With this program provider, they ran a little differently because it was, again, multi-locations. We started off in New York, and we were only responsible of flying into New York. But from there, our program provider bought our flights to then to travel as a cohort, because there were 30 of us, to kind of minimize risk of us traveling alone, especially to locations like Sao Paulo, where it can be kind of riskier for foreigners to fly into. And because also my spring semester was cut short due to the pandemic, our program provider also were the ones in charge with booking our flights back home. I know for a couple of my friends, it was very hard for them to kind of get flights back to the United States, and they were really pricey. So kind of our program provider was able to kind of alleviate that stress and that burden of how are we getting home during our evacuation in Spain. And so then with our program providers, they were kind of our family away from our family, especially in their headquarters. There was always someone in the office in both of the different program providers who kind of assist us with taking us to the doctors or showing us like how to take transportation, which is like kind of really scary your first week abroad because like you don't know anybody. But those were kind of like the main helpful things that our program providers like helped us with while our time abroad to kind of transition, make our transition easy.
Thanks so much, Deborah. That was amazing. Next up, we have Elizabeth SUDBEY. She's a senior. She went abroad also for 2 semesters last year, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about her program and also how her language study that she undertook at Providence College helped to kind of enhance her experience.
Hi there, thank you, Grace. So my name is Elizabeth SUDBEY, as she said, and I go by SUDS. It's a nickname from my last name. I'm a senior at Providence College, and I am a global studies major. And similar to Deborah, I also studied abroad for the entirety of last year. In the fall, I was in Dakar, Senegal, and then in the spring, I was in Vietnam. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the language aspect of studying abroad. So I'm going to focus on my semester in Senegal. And so before choosing my countries, I knew that I wanted to go to a French-speaking country for one of my semesters, but I didn't want to go to France. I worked in France previously, and I wanted to see another and live in another Francophone country. And I knew that study abroad was the ideal opportunity in terms of accommodations, finances, and resources provided by PC and the program providers to experience another country. And so before studying in Senegal, I had a bit of a background in speaking French, and it also happens to be one of my minors. So before coming to PC, I took French in high school, but kind of similar to most students, it wasn't very intensive, but I learned the basics. And then coming to PC, I didn't think that I wanted to pursue a language study. However, I tested into like an upper level French class, and my advisor at the time, I was undeclared, my advisor said, hey, just try it out. And after taking a language course, a French language course at PC, that's kind of when I started really loving the language and the culture and wanting to personally improve. And if you are a language major or minor, I highly recommend you travel to a country that speaks the language. Not only will it help you meet requirements for that major or minor, but your language speaking ability will improve. And if you're studying, yeah, Christian agrees. And if you're studying in another country but you don't speak the language, I recommend taking at least one, if you can, intro language course of that language. For example, before I went to Vietnam, I wish that I'd had a background in Vietnamese, just a basic understanding. And my other friends who have studied abroad in, say, like Italy have had similar experiences. And so language in Senegal, in the country. So I took a French placement test before arriving in the country, and I was placed in like a middle class, but then as like the semester went on, they kind of moved me up to another class. It was really just based on my language ability, so they took that into account. And I was able to improve on my written and spoken French skills. Definitely not fluent, but advanced, and definitely feel comfortable speaking. And I found the structure and pace to be very similar to like a PC course, but it was also just a lot more beneficial because I was speaking French all of the time outside of the classroom. For example, I lived with a host family for the entirety of the 3.5 months, and I communicated solely in French because they didn't know English. And I also held an internship during the last month, and I worked at a preschool teaching English. However, knowing French helped because the other teachers and the staff members didn't know French. They didn't know English, and so we could only communicate in French. And in addition, when I was teaching the children themselves, it was beneficial to know French beforehand because I was able to communicate and translate and explain things in French as the language of instruction. And then lastly, knowing French helped me to pick up other languages while I was in Senegal, interestingly enough. So one of the main native languages in Senegal is called Wolof. And so just by listening and paying attention and speaking to taxi drivers and just people in markets and in restaurants, being able to talk to them in French and then ask them questions in French about how to learn another language also benefited me. And so whenever people ask me kind of after coming back, oh, which semester did you like better? Did you like being in Senegal or did you like being in Vietnam better? It's an impossible question, but I did notice a significant difference in the communities that I was able to form while I was in the countries. And I was definitely able to form a stronger community while I was in Senegal because of the language. For example, in one of the photos, I'm with some of my friends who were dancers in Senegal, and we only spoke in French, and I was able to meet them and communicate and form relationships with them in that way. Another way is that I actually ended up acting in a episode of a Senegalese drama called Golden for an episode. They were looking for an English speaker, and that is me, but I was able to communicate with the directors and the film crew and the other actors in French, and which I wouldn't have been able to do. And so ultimately, like, being able to using and practicing French while I was in Senegal was how I found my, like, most importantly to me was friends and community while I was there, but it also just improved my own French speaking ability and knowledge. And even after coming back, I had a Zoom call with my French advisor, and she could noticeably see an improvement in especially my confidence, my fluidity in speaking French. And I really owe that to speaking it every single day for 3.5 months. And I definitely have a stronger connection since coming back.
Thank you so much, SUDS. It sounds like you had a really incredible junior year. Thanks for sharing those experiences with us. All right, so I just wanted to kind of get back into the nuts and bolts of, how to make this process happen if it's something that's of interest to you and your student. So the application deadline is actually coming up pretty soon. For sophomores who want to go abroad junior year, the application deadline is December 1st. So this is the absolute final deadline for fall study abroad, and it's sort of the early deadline for spring of junior year study abroad. So if students are thinking about going spring, we still encourage them to apply by December 1st. They'll find out their admission status a little bit sooner and be able to solidify that. But we are actually going to keep the application open this year until March 1st, just to sort of allow a little bit of extra time for students to apply for spring. I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now. People might be hesitant to commit to going abroad, and so we're going to try to give students a little bit of extra time to apply for spring of junior year by extending the deadline until March 1st. Students who are going on the Civ in London program, which would be, so freshmen would be applying now to go second semester of sophomore year, that deadline is also March 1st. And then finally, faculty-led programs, we have rolling deadlines for those throughout the year. We don't currently have anything on track, but students should keep an eye out for that if there's a program that's of interest to them.
Great, thank you, Grace, and to the students as well. And I appreciate SUD's remarks about language study. I'm a big advocate of language study, as somebody who studied French in college, and so I certainly encourage students to consider at least perhaps a minor in another language and studying abroad in a non-English speaking country. It's not required to know another language if you want to go to Italy or the Czech Republic or Spain, but it certainly enhances the experience, and you got to learn a lot more about another culture through the lens of language. So just a few additional remarks about that to reinforce the wonderful things that SUDS shared with us about her experience learning languages in Senegal. So essentially, global education is taking some new directions these days as a result of the pandemic. It certainly breaks my heart that we're not sending students abroad at the moment, but as Grace spoke about earlier, health and safety are paramount to us. And so those of us who work in global education, we're now exploring other opportunities for students to have engage in global learning as a result of the pandemic. Some of the things that I'm just about to speak about have been going on in international education for some time now. It's just the pandemic has sort of maybe accelerated some of these things that have been emerging in the field of global education, for the past couple of decades. So, I would say that, COVID has certainly created some of these new opportunities or has, accelerated things. for us to focus on what is generally called internationalization at home and virtual exchange programs. So CGE, Center for Global Education, we've been working closely with faculty and staff to develop new programs for global learning. So while students may not be able to study abroad in a physical sense at the moment, modern technology makes it possible for us to bring the world to campus. So even when study abroad resumes, we do hope to sustain some of these models for global learning to maximize opportunities for students, especially before and after they go abroad, as well as to provide opportunities for students who may not be able to study abroad for a variety of reasons. So one of these opportunities is COIL, which stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. And this provides an opportunity for not only students, but also faculty for virtual exchange with students and faculty at universities abroad, in which portions of a course or an entire course are co-taught by faculty, and students engage in assignments and projects together, so they learn alongside each other as well as from each other as they're engaged in this virtual exchange. So one of our faculty members, Dr. Monica Simal, in Foreign Language Studies, will be offering a literature and culture class this next semester in conjunction with the University in Puerto Rico. So we're very excited that we'll be, offering this opportunity, and we're hoping to expand on these programs in the future. In addition to COIL, Grace and Spencer talked earlier in the presentation about internships, and we are exploring and will be offering students opportunities to engage in remote internships or virtual internships with a global focus. So we'll have some scholarship funding available for students in spring and summer. So if funding's a concern, there would be some funding opportunities for students. More information about that is coming soon. But doing a remote internship is a great opportunity for students to gain virtual work skills across both cultures and time zones, which is something that students will likely experience in their future jobs. As I mentioned a moment ago, the pandemic has sort of put us into, this virtual world. I imagine we will return to some state of normalcy at some point, but I don't think we'll completely exit this virtual world. And there's a lot of benefits, to working, virtually and remotely, and working with people across cultures and time zones in this environment. So we have carefully vetted a number of these programs that you see listed here. CAPA was the program that organized Spencer's internship in Australia. Another organization we're working with is GAV, that would be Global Academic Ventures, and the School for International Training, or SIT, that you heard about a few moments ago with the student panelists, as well as myself. I participated in an SIT program. So students with an interest in entrepreneurship will also have a special opportunity next summer with the European Innovation Academy. We're also looking to do an international lecture series in the spring focusing on global issues, one of them being the pandemic. But we are looking, partnering with some of our study abroad providers to bring the world to campus, as we said a few moments ago. One of them is based in Denmark. We're also looking at doing this with SIT. So some examples would be happiness and sustainability in Scandinavia, a comparative political response to COVID in Denmark, Sweden, and Russia, and looking at some of the things that SIT is doing in South Africa, Ecuador, and Nepal.
All right, so in terms of next steps, a student who might be interested in studying abroad, we encourage them to attend an info session. We hold these about once every other week on Zoom, and these are actually led by global ambassadors like SUDS and DEBORAH, who went abroad and can talk a little bit more about their own experiences, how they ended up choosing their program, things of that nature. We also encourage students to meet with the study abroad advisors. That would be me or Denise Miller, or for global studies majors, they'll meet with Dr. Will Wall. And then, as I said before, freshmen have that March 1st deadline to apply for Civ in London sophomore year, if that's of interest to them. Sophomores have a December 1st deadline for fall study abroad of junior year. They can apply early for spring study abroad of junior year on that December 1st deadline, or they have until March 1st to get their application in for spring of 2022. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions. We're happy to take questions live or in the chat, however people feel most comfortable. All right, I see one question here. All right, my son is a junior, was applying to go to Japan with CIEE. Is there any chance he could study abroad? Yes, so students who were planning to go abroad this year can actually go abroad as seniors. In most cases, the program providers are able to transfer any funds that were paid into the following semester. So fall semester of senior year is an option, and I'd be also happy to work with anyone on a case-by-case basis with specific questions that they might have about refunds or anything of that nature. So please feel free to email me or Dr. Wilwall. I'll put my email address in the chat. Great. If anyone has any questions for the students, they're also happy to take questions as well. All right, so there's a question about pre-engineering student. And I wish Denise Miller were here right now because she's actually the major advisor for that. But every single major can study abroad. We have options for everyone. Off the top of my head, I don't know what the best program choice would be, but what we would do is take a look at her degree audit and find a program where the courses would transfer back. So what we do actually in advance is look at the courses that are abroad, we evaluate the syllabi, and then we find out for sure how that course is going to transfer back to the PC transcript so that there are no surprises and the people can make sure that they stay on track. I know a popular option was the program in Ghana with Steve Mecca as a short-term faculty-led program for pre-engineering students. Terry McGoldrick is running that program now, so hopefully that would be an option for her at some point during her 4 years at PC, but there will be a semester-length program option as well. If you could invite her to meet with Denise Miller, she's the study abroad advisor for that particular major. All right, another question. Oh, sure.
And just to, I guess, expand there. There are opportunities, again, as Grace said, for students of all majors. And so sometimes there's a myth, so to speak, that if you are in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, that, you know, study abroad is, you know, not possible. And the study abroad providers or programs, they obviously want more students to study abroad. PC wants more students to study abroad. So there are probably more opportunities than, you know, what we might think for STEM students. So if you are in, you know, STEM, early planning is key, and we'll certainly work with you to make sure that you can fit in the study abroad experience and still graduate on time. So again, don't let major or, you know, some of these misconceptions about study abroad hold you back.
I was thinking the next question maybe SUDS or DEBORAH you might want to answer. So it's about, you know, how difficult is it to meet other people when you're not traveling abroad with friends? So I know it's a pretty common thing. Well, the PC Rome program tends to draw a lot of students. Most students who are going abroad maybe only know like 1 or 2 other PC students on their program, if that. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, definitely. So for both of my programs, I was the only PC student traveling to both countries, and I also didn't know any of the other students beforehand. But that was also the majority of the situation for most students. Most students came from different universities and didn't really know anyone coming into the program. However, I know for a fact that I used the same provider, which is SIT. And the first week or week and a half is dedicated to an orientation period of like no classes and kind of just getting adjusted to the country and your living situation and all of that. And they do a really great job of like kind of throwing you together like 24/7 to get to know one another. And I personally didn't have any problems making friends with, there was a lot of students who wanted to be there and they were open, like they came and studied abroad for a reason. They were willing and open to meeting new people, or the majority were definitely. And I know that programs typically create different functions or different like excursions or different like programs for the students to all like purposely get together and do stuff. And I know that with SIT, I was never without the students. We can't travel to other countries with this specific provider, and I was with them all the time in all of my classes and on the weekends and after school studying, all of the above. So even if it is daunting to go to another country without knowing someone, especially not, or even someone like from PC, but I didn't see it as a problem at all. I actually enjoyed it, getting to know new people.
Just like in addition to what SUDS had said, yeah, it's kind of daunting to kind of like go to a different country and not know anyone. But I think what also help with like the transition of making friends abroad is the fact that we stayed with home states, or that I stayed with home states, particularly all my semesters. And I think without going with people from PC, you're able to be more immersed in kind of like in the friendships you make in the respective countries that you study abroad in. I know in particular for me with my home stays, like my host mother would always like invite her friends over and introduce me more to like her friends' children, and kind of like make friendships that way. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it is stressful to think about that you won't know anybody, but I think it's also very easy to make friends and kind of build relationships and not continue or be in like the PC bubble, as I like to say.
Thank you both. Just gonna leave this open for questions for another minute if anyone has any. We really appreciate your time today. Please send your students by our office. We're doing virtual walk-in hours on Zoom every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 2 to 3:30. And like I said before, we have info sessions all the time that sort of provide a general study abroad 101. So those are available in morning mail, and we hope that they will be joining us for one of those very soon. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you for being here this evening, and please get in touch with us if you have any questions. We want to thank College Events for providing us this opportunity this evening, and to thank the student panelists, Deborah, SUDS, and Spencer. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out to us at any time. And thank you, Grace, for putting the presentation together and for advancing the slides this evening, and all the good things that you said. So thank you, everybody, and have a good evening.
Thanks.